Hello everypony, welcome back to my YouTube channel, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about social anxiety. So if that's something you don't really want to hear about, maybe skip this one. Or if I might be talking a bit about other things related to mental health. I'm not really sure though. We'll see where the app goes, you know. Things like depression maybe. So if these things are like sore subjects, it's okay. I just realized I'm not wearing my foxes. Oh no, don't worry. They're back on. I think these are part of the channel now, to be honest. I don't think I can really go without them. Anyways, so yeah, social anxiety. It's something that I am happy that I can now talk about, because it's something that I struggled with for years, like years, and it really is quite a milestone to be doing this right now. For example, I made this channel kind of to help with that a little bit. I'd already gotten a bit better at handling my social anxiety at the time, but I never showed my face anywhere. Like, I didn't show my face at all. Nobody knew what I looked like. So just making this channel was kind of a big jump, you know? I didn't think anybody was going to see the videos. I thought it was just going to be just uploading these videos into the void to kind of help, you know, and get talking. Also, the eye makeup, the reason it looks so dodgy right now, it's not because I was crying, it's because I was playing video games with my friend earlier, and I was having quite a fun time, and I was laughing quite a bit, so it's a bit smudged up. So please excuse that. So then, I mean, another thing with the face thing is my, like, best friend, who I'd known for maybe like 5 years now, she didn't know what I looked like for maybe 3 years, and she only knew what I looked like the day before we planned on meeting up. So yeah, just to get an extent of how like insecure I was with how I looked and stuff. Okay, so social anxiety, I'm going to be talking about how I kind of developed it, and also talking about how I got better, you know. And I don't have much tips to getting better. I'm just going to be sharing my experience, so if you are somebody who's struggling with it, I'm not sure how helpful this video is going to be. Hopefully, maybe a little bit, but it's just more going to be sharing my story, you know. So, when I was young, like a young kid, maybe, I don't know, like 6 years old, I was obviously quite out there, just because I was like a kid, you know. Things like talking to adults I had no problem with. I actually really liked talking to people. I'd say I was quite a social kid, you know. I'd talk to strangers at any opportunity I could get. But, you know, that was just being a little kid and not having any fear in the world. Everything's just sunshine and rainbows, you know, so I could do that. And I did. And it was like that up until, I mean, maybe my first memory of ever feeling like anxious in public would probably be like going into nursery, you know, because you're around a bunch of kids, and at that time you didn't really talk to anybody your age. It was just your parents. So, I mean, I picked up on school pretty quickly. Going into school at the start was very hard. I remember crying and trying to escape the school on my first day because I just missed my mum, and I just hated everyone there. But yeah, so primary school, so like elementary school, you know, when you're still young, not even a teenager yet. I think I was pretty good with being social for basically the entire time I was in there. I was more social around just the kids in my class because we all knew each other. I did start to get a bit afraid of strangers, but maybe that was just because I was being taught about stranger danger and stuff like that, just things for my safety. So maybe it was a good idea that I was quite scared of adults when I was that age. So that's not really anxiety, it's more just social awareness, you know. But I started to feel socially anxious, and I can kind of say it was social anxiety. By the way, I did get diagnosed for social anxiety uh, so it's not just a feeling that I had. I definitely had it, and I went into secondary school, and that's when things started to get a bit harder because I was so used to being around these same people forever. You know, you have the exact same class in primary school for the entire 7 years that you're in there. So getting put into a whole new school, and it was quite a big school, quite a big secondary school. I think there was around 1,200 people in this school, and obviously only 200 of them are your age. So I was around 1,000 different kids that were a lot older than me. That's what I kind of don't like about secondary school, and why I think that there should be a middle school like Americans have. Is just I think it's so weird that 10-year-olds are in the same building and get surrounded with 16-year-olds. That's such a big difference in age, and it's the reason why year sevens are all kind of scared, because year sevens also get treated badly, and that's kind of what made me a bit more anxious, was going down the school hallways and seeing a year 11, so somebody who's 15, 16, basically, because my school is not nice. My school is very bad. People in it are very mean. It's an English school. English schools don't have, I think, are most of the time not the nicest. But every single time you'd see a year 11 in the hallway, it basically meant, oh, I'm gonna get shoved, and that's what happens. The year 11s treat the year 7s like absolute garbage. I think it's a bit weird. I hate it. I hate how that's like the culture. I hate how that's the norm in school. I would get just pushed. Like I remember one time I was in an empty corridor, and there was no one walking down it, completely empty. And there was two year 11 boys walking down on the opposite side of the hall, and I was on the left side, so we were not near each other. And then when I got to them, they just rammed into me and just slammed me against the wall, and then just kept walking off. I was like, that's terrible. That was awful. I hated that. That made me really sad, and because they had no reason to do that. That was just sheer like hate in their hearts, and they only did that because they knew they could. Because a year 7 is obviously not going to talk back to somebody who's 16. You're not A 10-year-old isn't going to try argue with a 16-year-old, because one punch from them and you can just die. You know. So that was the culture in school. But the second that I got into year 7, the second that I got into secondary school, I felt really, 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 really scared of everyone. I was always kind of quiet in class, but that was more of a choice, to be honest. I was always kind of quiet, but in secondary school I was being more quiet because I was scared that somebody was going to lash out at me. And it wasn't just the students. The teachers got 10 times worse. The teachers in secondary school are obviously a lot more stricter than they are in primary school, but I didn't think it'd be that different. I think that teachers should always kind of treat kids with respect, but we went from being told off in primary school, something like, no, don't do that, that was bad. Then they move you down a colour. They put you on green, put you on blue, put you on red. Oh, God forbid, if you ever got put on red, you have to sit in the corner, you know. So that we went from the worst punishment being a little telling off to being yelled at, like being screamed at. A little 10-year-old kid being screamed at by like some 50-year-old man. It was awful, and it made me very, very fearful of all of the teachers. So I was in this school, I was fearful of all of the teachers, I was fearful of all of the kids, obviously apart from the ones my age, but even still the people my age didn't treat me very nicely. The only people I was cool with were the people that I was cool with from primary school. And I think that definitely elevated my anxiety at a point, and I would play a lot of video games, so that was kind of my comfort to get away from everything. I'd play a lot of video games, and I was pretty nice on video games. I was pretty cool in video games. I was a very, 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 very big fan of video games. But okay, it got really. So at this point, I was anxious. I chose to not go outside at the opportunity that I could. I would only go to school. I used to, when I was younger, I would go to like the shops with my mum. I'd go for a little walk with my mum, stuff like that. I'd do everything with her. We'd go out quite a lot and go out somewhere to eat. And secondary school, all of that got taken out of me. I wasn't doing any of that anymore. Every single time my mum asked, "Do you want to go out? Do you want to go get something to eat?" I'd say, "No, no, I can't do it," because every single time I was out in public, I'd look at everyone like they're a threat, which is not how I used to view people before. I'd look at everyone and think they're out to get me. They've got a knife on them. They're gonna kill me, stuff like that. And I genuinely mean that. That's not like hyperbole. Is I thought that people wanted me like gone. I thought that everybody wanted to hurt me, even though at this point I hadn't really been attacked in public. I hadn't really been attacked in school apart from things like being shoved and stuff. But I still had that idea in my head. And I was very, at this point it was quite bad. When I was in school, okay, so I also was quite insecure about the way I looked. I don't really have any pictures of me then, so I'm not sure if the ideas I have of myself were rational or not. But I remember I was a bit overweight. I had really horrible hair, like really really horrible hair. Imagine how it is now, maybe a little bit shorter, maybe like up to here, because I haven't cut my hair in like 7 years. Imagine that, but instead of having bangs, it just dropped down. So like I had a side part, so like half my face was covered like this, and it looked really bad. It like a 2009 like emo, you know, a 2012 like emo scene kid, and that wasn't very in style at the time. So I got picked on a little bit for stuff like that. Not for my weight. That was kind of more a personal problem that I was struggling with my weight. I remember I started becoming self-conscious of my weight because we did a physical exam in primary school, and I thought I was really skinny at the time, even though I was eating kind of garbage. I thought I was skinny, and we did this physical exam, and you had to take your weight for it. And I remember stepping on the scale, but then everybody like the next day got letters talking about how they did in it. I'm talking about like it's a test, but it's not a test, just to make sure you're healthy. And everybody was like, "Oh, I got like, oh yeah, I'm overweight," stuff like that. And then my one, I looked at it, it said overweight. I was like, oh my god. And what overweight even means is kind of doesn't really mean much, because it could just be like a few like kilograms overweight. But I remember seeing overweight, and just from then I didn't stop thinking about it. I'd always look at myself like I was huge, you know, even though I was probably just slightly chubby. So that was another thing that I thought people were judging me for. I thought people were judging me for being overweight. I thought people were judging me for my ugly hair. I thought people were judging me genuinely for the way that I walked. Every single time I'd walk past people older than me, or really just anyone at this point, I would go from just walking to like manually thinking about like, okay, this step goes here, this foot goes here, this foot goes here. And it was really stressful. It was really a lot, because I had to think about every single thing my body was doing just to not come across as slightly different, because you get bullied in school for being slightly different. I probably ended up looking a bit more stupid thinking about that. Now I think of it, I was probably like why is this kid like coordinating their steps? Another thing I remember is every single time I'd walk past someone, not only was I thinking about how I walked, I was thinking about my breath. I was thinking about my breathing patterns, because I thought that people were gonna judge me for the way that I breathed. Crazy, right? But that's just what social anxiety can be. Every single time I walked past a group of people, I'd hold in my breath, and I'd stop breathing. I would focus on my walking. I'd completely stop breathing. I'd get really confused on what to do with my arms. I'd just like put them in my pockets, or just like pretend I'm holding something. And I'd stop breathing, because like they're gonna judge me for breathing. What if I think I'm breathing weird? Genuinely. So yeah, at this point, I was pretty far in, and it got worse. It got a lot worse. This wasn't the worst it got. It got worse because of lockdown, and I think a lot of people kind of developed a bit of social awkwardness over lockdown. I mean, it makes sense. You know, we weren't really making any social interaction, so it makes sense that you become a bit more awkward. But in my case, in lockdown, it was so comforting to me because at this time I had been struggling with social anxiety. I was very scared of people. So having a period where I can be out of school, I don't have to go outside ever. I can just sit in my room and play games forever, what seemed like forever. That was literally my dream. I probably had prayed for that at some point when I went into secondary school. So yeah, that was really comforting, and I got really used to it. I was quite happy during lockdown, to be honest. I remember myself being quite happy. Maybe at the time it wasn't really like that, but looking back on it now, yeah, it was quite a good time. I think a lot of people miss lockdown, to be honest. And so because I got so used to that, when lockdown eventually ended, it was a huge, like, just shoving you right back in, which was really hard because I went from having no interaction, I didn't talk to anyone except for maybe my mum, to going right back into secondary school, and everybody was there. All 1,200 kids were back there. And I was in year 9, I think, when lockdown ended. I was going back into year 9. So I was 14, 13 at this point. And I've talked about this a little bit in my video where I talk about just school. But when I went back into secondary school, everybody had changed because we were locked in our room, not talking to each other for 2 whole years. Was two? No, it wasn't 2 years. For like 1 year. I don't remember how long lockdown was. Let's just say 1 year. So we were all in our room, not talking to anyone, not having seen each other for a whole year. And keep in mind, we are 13. If you don't know, the difference, the change that people go through when they're 12 and they turn 13, they change a lot going from 12 to 13 because of puberty. So going back into school and seeing everybody. So I used to be one of the taller people in my class, to be honest. I'm not tall, I'm only 5'10", but I was like, I oversaw a lot of people. But then going back into school, these kids that were smaller than me, 6'3", their voice have dropped insanely, and they're acting all like different. They're acting more like cool, and I'm like, what the like this little kid is like, why is he coming in so swagged out, you know? That made me a little bit. That was really scary because remember, I had terrible social anxiety. I go back into school, none of my friends are the same, none of my friends really like me anymore, and now I have no friends. So I was dealing with social anxiety and I had no friends. So my least favorite part of the entire day at school was lunchtime, because at lunchtime I'd have to be around all the kids and I wouldn't have anyone, and I'd have to kind of hide and wait for it to end because I was too scared to talk to anyone. I remember a lot of lunchtimes I would just sit in the bathroom and just wait for it to end so I could just go back to class and just get school done with. And it was so bad that I did drop out at year 9. There was a few other reasons, but for the most part it was because of how anxiety was just messing me up way too much. I could not handle it. It was impossible for me, that environment. But okay, so now I'm at home, I'm not in school, and it's basically like it's locked down again, to be honest, but just for me. We were looking at other schools. I was looking at this one school in specific that my friend went to. We were thinking about transferring to, but we got put on a really big wait list. So I had time to just like do nothing, and I went right back to my room, played video games every single day, did not leave the house, and that wait list turned from what we thought was going to be like a 3-month wait into okay, we're not going to the school anymore. So then we didn't know what we're going to do. We didn't know what we're going to do with me. Because now I'm in like year 10, I'm not in school, I'm doing no form of education whatsoever, and I'm like, oh my god, what am I going to do with my future? But in my head, I'm secretly like, this is amazing. Like I don't have to deal with that stuff anymore. I don't have to deal with feeling terrified of everyone. I don't have to deal with thinking about how I look in front of everyone. So I just took it gracefully and enjoyed my time indoors. 3 months turned into 1 year of being indoors, turned into 2 years of being indoors. And at this point, I had no one. I had no friends. I had some people online that I talked to. Not a lot though. I was really only talking to like one person, to be honest. Shout out Jasmine. But being indoors for that long, and even though I was kind of enjoying not being outside, I was also hating being so insanely lonely. I had nobody. The only person I talked to was my mum sometimes, and we weren't really this close anymore because, to be honest, I was so bad at talking that I couldn't even really talk to her a lot of the time. I was just talking to people online because that's all I could do. And yeah, it was really really lonely because it wasn't like, and I wanted to get out. I wanted friends, and I knew that to make friends I had to go out. But because around this time I started to fall into a depression, I was just like, I didn't really think about the future. I didn't think that there was gonna be a future. I thought that for the most part I'm just gonna live like this for a few years, then God knows what happens next. Maybe I'll live like this forever. That's what I thought. I genuinely thought that. I thought I was gonna be just in my room for my entire life with nobody. And in my head, because I was so depressed from being this lonely and being closed off for everyone, you think that I would recognize that and then instantly could just go back outside and start making friends. But I had depression and I had social anxiety that was stopping me from doing these things that I wanted to do. I wanted to go out and make friends, but something about being indoors, being so comforting, and just this feeling of depression of just like, I'm just gonna live like this and just accept it, made me secretly, made me not want it, made me not want to go out. So I wanted to want to go outside. I wanted to want to get better, but I didn't really actually want to get better, if what I'm saying is making any sense. And I was really just stuck in this position. So I had now been living like this for 2 years. So I'm like 16 now. I haven't talked to anybody. I haven't talked to anybody my age in 2 years. I hadn't gone outside in 2 years. I knew nothing about the world. I was so far behind. I knew nothing about how do you go to a grocery store and just buy groceries? How do you like catch a bus? How do you do anything? I had no idea. I had no idea how to go to like a Greg's and order a sausage roll, kind of thing. That was so far beyond me, and I could never ever imagine myself doing those things because it seemed impossible. And I mean that. I don't mean like, I think a lot of people might see social anxiety as someone being like, oh, they're just lazy and they just want to be themselves. Having social anxiety is not the same thing as being shy. It's not the same thing as wanting to just do nothing, because I wanted to do these things, but my brain just wasn't letting me want to do these things. So I just stayed like that, and it got to the point where, it got to the point where it was genuinely insufferable. And I'm like, I can't live like this. It's awful, especially having like seeing all of my friends online and stuff start doing stuff a lot better than me. Like, what do you mean you took I'd be talking to my friend like, what do you mean you just took a train to somewhere? Like, how are you taking a train on your own at my age? Because I didn't know that was a normal thing that people did at my age. I thought we all kind of still needed like help from adults, because I just had no idea how the real world worked. I had no idea how much like food costed, anything. might be going in circles a bit here, but I hope I've dug this into your head that I was really bad. So then this went on for like another year. So then I'm like 17. Nothing's changed. I did obviously during all of this, I was trying to get help with my mum, and I talked to a couple counselors. I tried out therapy. Just nothing seemed to work. And I think that the reason why all of these things didn't work, things like trying antidepressants, trying therapy, it didn't work because I didn't want it to work. I wanted to stay in this extremely lonely but comforting place. I was just too scared of the world that I just wanted to stay inside and I'd rather be inside and be miserable and lonely than go outside and be around people. Because I was that scared of people. I would rather just be inside and hate everything than get help, because it means I have to talk to people to get help. But yeah, these things I don't think worked because I wasn't letting it work secretly. Like, suppressed in the back of my mind, I wasn't letting these things work. I went to therapy, and in the back of my head I was probably thinking like, this isn't going to work, this isn't going to work, this isn't going to work, so it didn't work. And I know this is probably a cliche thing to hear, and it might annoy people who are struggling with this to hear. It's that you need to help people help you. Because the truth is, if you don't want to get better, then you're probably not going to get better. You have to put some work in yourself, and that was something that I really, really, really did not want to accept. I thought it was just going to be as simple as I take a pill, and now I'm going to go outside and make some friends. But no, it just doesn't work like that. So then now I'm 17, and to make things clear how recent this was, I am still 17. I'm turning 18 in less than a month from now. So I'm 17, and okay, so now, talking now, I can say that I recovered. But how did I do this? Well, I tried to make improvements in places that I felt were comfortable. Because obviously going outside just didn't work for me. Things like talking to a therapist just didn't work for me because it was like interaction. And okay, this is how I got better. This is not how I'm saying it works for everybody. I had no friends. I had, again, maybe one friend online. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna make some changes here. So I started joining a bunch of Discord servers. I started joining these servers that were called like make friends, and you'd like send a thing saying DM me if you want to be my friend, and you'd talk to them, and 90% of the time they'd just be not the nicest people. But I did actually make a couple online friends from this. I did actually meet a couple here and there, but they live like across the world. But having a couple extra friends like that did make me feel a little bit better. Not socially, it just made me feel a little bit more mentally like clear, a tiny bit. And then one day I stopped expecting people to reach out to me, because when I joined these servers I thought, okay, I'm going to put this message here, and then somebody from England who's like a trans girl and is somebody I like is going to DM me and ask if they want to hang out. I stopped expecting that to happen, and I saw somebody who had in their like bio in some random Discord server, it said, my DM's always open, I'm always looking to meet friends. And I saw trans girl, 17, and from England. I thought, well, I really want this person to message me. And I just built up the courage to message them, and I saw one of their interests was this band called Glass Beach. I said, oh my god, I love Glass Beach too. And then I got talking to her, and it was pretty nice. Then I found out she lived in Manchester, which is like quite far from me, So then I kind of stopped talking to her for a bit, and I went back into this state of just doing nothing, but still trying to make some friends on the internet, just kind of hoping for a miracle. And then I realized that the reason that I didn't want to talk to this person that was in Manchester was solely because they were in Manchester. I could just work around that, right? So I looked at that, what looked like a dead end. And one day we started talking a little bit again, and I asked her something like, "Do you want to come round here?" Because I know that I can't take trains. Thankfully, she can. So I asked if she wanted to come see me and stay here for a few days. And she did. Very, very nerve wracking. I hadn't met an online friend in the past before. And to be honest, that wasn't very hard because I knew her for years. But this one was very scary because, to be honest, I'd only been talking to her for a few months. She came round and she was very cool, and thank God we clicked, and thank God she was. I told her about how, anxious I was, so she knew about this stuff. She knew that I wasn't very good in public, and she was nice enough to help me do stuff. We'd go to the shop. I'd just make her pay for everything. Not with money. I mean, like, I'd make her talk to the cashier and stuff. But just watching her, being around her, seeing her do this stuff, made me feel a lot more confident in doing it myself. So after she went back home, I instantly felt like I can do all these things now. But how did I stop getting like insecure? Was in my case, it was transitioning, and I hated myself for being overweight. I hated myself for the way that my face looked and stuff. But I found out eventually that it wasn't me hating these parts of me. I was not feeling that. I was feeling dysphoria. And then when I realized that, things started to make a lot more sense, because it wasn't this journey of weight loss I had to go on. I just had to transition, and when I transitioned and I started to become more comfortable in my own body and how I looked, I started to feel more open to showing people my face. I started to feel more open going outside for a bit. Obviously it was hard at the start because I wasn't anywhere near passing, but eventually I did get to a point. Like, I started HRT before I started going outside. So I just waited for the HRT to do his thing, and then eventually I felt more confident going outside because I wasn't thinking that everybody thought I was ugly, So this person that I met and came round and showed me how to do all these things, I eventually saw them again, and I started to take some. Oh yeah, when she came here, we went to a show and we took a train there. And I was watching her take this train. She was teaching me how to like take trains. So I felt confident taking a train to like London. So I took a train to London, met her again, took a train back on my own, and that's a big step there because I knew I couldn't have done that years before. And then eventually I went to go see her where she lived. I took a train on my own all the way to Manchester and took a train back. And then at that point I knew, like, I've gotten a lot better. And I was dealing with a lot of other stuff, and clearing that up also did help. I don't want to go too in depth now because it's been 33 minutes. But now I'm at a stage where I feel like I can really do anything. I've been going to the shops, buying stuff on my own. I've been going on little walks on my own, and not really feeling scared of anyone. Because when you start to go out, you do start to realize that these people are harmless, because I'm looking at them like I don't really care about you. So why should I expect other people to look at me and care about me? And I'd heard that like advice when I was going through all this, but I didn't accept it, and it didn't help me because I was in such like this state of like mind block, like I don't want to get better. But now that I got to a point where I do want to get better, because I had experienced social interaction again, and I had realized how much I was missing out on, I wanted to get better. And then I did get better. So that's my story, kinda. Maybe I didn't tell it the best. I just kind of make these videos to talk, and I definitely talked. Thank you all for watching. Maybe this is a bit messy, but yeah, if you're someone who is struggling with this stuff, really, like, genuinely best of luck. It was really, really hard. But I know from having done it myself that you can get better and it will get better. You just have to want to do it, which is the hard part. It's a harder hurdle to get over, right? Maybe if you're like struggling and you're looking for communities and stuff, you can join my Discord. Just DM me on Twitter, stuff like that. Um, yeah, that's all I have to say, I think. Thank you all for watching. I've been Melanie. This has been Jolly.